Today we're going to talk about how to keep the weeds out of your garden. Do you spend the majority of your precious time weeding your garden? Good morning, everybody. This is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead, and we are about to add yet another garden. Last fall, we added woven weave fabric on the south side of our greenhouse. This is where we're using our raised beds. On the east side, I just started rolling out some of this fabric. I'm going to put some more raised beds on this side, but for now, it's just for weed control in front of the greenhouse. There's actually no need to till this area before I cover it. In fact, I just put 2 of these on here, and you'll see it's really sticking up as the plants are trying to reach for light. Within 2 or 3 weeks of the heat, these plants underneath the woven weave are going to disappear. But the reason I'm not tilling this area is that I'm not going to plant in ground in front of my greenhouse. I need access to get in there. I intend to put a few raised beds out in front, but the most part, this is going to be empty. So I just don't want to have to keep mowing it. So woven weave to the rescue. So let's get to work on learning how to keep the weeds out of your garden. When starting with a brand new area, this had actually been our hay field. You need to at least mow the lawn really low. We have a tractor with a tiller, so it is no problem to get in here and eliminate all this grass simply by tilling. But if you're using one of those ponies or Troy belts, you're going to want to remove the grass first. What we found was the easiest way to do this was to lay out tarps for about a month or all over the winter, and then that will kill the grass below. And since this is part of our hay field, I went through this morning. Jim is getting the tiller, putting it on the tractor, and I mowed the area for our garden. We discovered years ago, the bigger the garden, the more the weeds. And one way to conquer those weeds is to use fabric. This is DeWitt woven weave fabric. We order it on Amazon. We used to get it from a greenhouse company, but to be honest, it was so expensive. So we have switched to just ordering it on Amazon. This was 6 foot by 300 feet for about $100. We started using this many, many years ago, and at that point, everybody said, don't use fabric, you will regret it. We don't regret one moment of using this fabric. But even today, people mistake it for landscape fabric. This was what the previous owner had put down under rocks to block it out. The reality is, it disintegrates, it shreds, it moves into your lawn, and it is a pain to use. We are not talking about this. Instead, we're talking about woven weave fabric, where the moisture can go down through it, but the plants can't come up. And the only place we ever get weeds, oh, look at that. That's not actually a weed. That's a little tomato plant that came up on its own. But where you burn the holes, that was where the stake was, is where you're going to get the weeds that will come up. Another place I tend to find the weeds is right where the staples went in. If there's a teeny little bit of hole, some weed is going to say, hey, I see the light. And honestly, I would rather pull, a couple weeds a year than a couple million. Today, I'm going to show you some of the tricks that work for us. First, I try to mulch everything I have in a raised bed. This is straw. Don't make the mistake of using hay because it will grow little grass seeds in your raised beds. There are a few things that I plant that I don't use woven weave for. One of those is asparagus. And yes, I need to get this asparagus mulched. There's only so many hours in a day, especially when you work full-time as a teacher. I planted about 10 different varieties of garlic last October, and man, some of these are doing amazing. Now, in order to keep growing amazing garlic, I'm going to save the best for my seed for next fall. The garlic that did the poorest was my store-bought varieties. Yep, they weren't meant to grow in West Virginia. In fact, many of the store-bought didn't even come up. Ones I ordered for our region came up along. They are doing fantastic. I use woven weave fabric for the vast majority of my in-ground beds. I also use it as the floor of my greenhouse. Well, you know how it goes. 2 hours later, we finally have the rototiller hooked up to the tractor. The area is all tilled and I am going to start putting out my woven weave fabric. Of course, you don't want to do it on a windy day, but sometimes you have no choice. Rain is coming and I need this fabric in so I can plant my strawberries. Tools you're going to need: landscape staples and a hammer. You want to melt the seams and the holes before you plant. It's a 2x6 so that I can place the fabric on top of it to burn the seam. That way, if I have some dry grass, it doesn't catch on fire. I did all this by myself, but honestly, if there are 2 of you, it's gonna go a whole lot faster. Problem is, Jim is out plowing in the field, so sometimes you gotta do it by yourself. We get the teeniest late afternoon shade here, so I have lined on the edge of my garden area around the greenhouse some blueberry bushes, and they get smaller as we go because some of them are brand new. Started by overlapping a couple feet, and now I'm simply going to push this roll out. You're going to see that I'm going to roll over all those weeds. It will be fine. And I just keep unrolling it until I get down there. Adding some staples along the way, but I'm not putting them all the way down. That way, if I have to adjust it, I can easily give it a yank and slide it over a little. And to keep it where I want it from the fence, I put a line on that board. So I want it 4 feet. That's going to be 1 foot to go under the fence as a mow line, and then 1 foot to be tucked under the next row of woven weave fabric. I'm not kidding, it's hard work for somebody that's pushing 60 all by themselves, but we are making progress, and not we, I am making progress, and I'm gonna keep on pushing to go. With my butane lighter, I went and burned a seam at the end of the row so it's not going to unravel. Don't cut it with scissors or a knife or it's going to shred. All right, first row done, past the perimeter. I'm not putting the perimeter one up yet. Now it's going to go so much faster because I don't have to measure. I am just going to lay this new roll 1 foot over. That way no weeds are going to come through. Next row starts with a 1 foot overlap, and I look for the staples I've already put in and I add them halfway. That way you're not putting them on top of each other, but also it's going to be stronger in the end. Whew. And while I'm catching my breath, I want to tell you about a little incident that happened this week. I had a YouTube fan show up at my house. Not only did she show up uninvited and unwelcomed, but she brought sick chickens with her. She wanted me to come out and look at her chickens and tell her what was wrong with them. Honestly, people, I am just a normal person. I'm a teacher, I'm a YouTuber, I even work at a feed store. But my time is very precious. I was actually out in the greenhouse working like I usually am. And I had 2 gates between me and her. And I asked her to please get off my property. If you are showing up unwelcomed, I am not going to come out and say, "Hi, this is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead." Instead, I'm going to ask my husband to let the dogs out, and I'm going to call the police, because you just don't know who that person is. So on behalf of all YouTubers, I just ask that you value their time, their privacy, their property. You know, bringing a sick chicken to my property put all of my chickens at danger. I don't know why her chicken was sick. She said they were dying, that a vet was expensive. I am not a veterinarian, and I cannot diagnose anybody else's chicken. But what I definitely don't want to do is to lose my own flock. Oh, look, there's another little maple tree. Well, enough lecture on what my life is really like. Actually, it's pretty crazy. I'm no different than most of you. My laundry pile's too high. We've been eating out too much because, you know, we're too exhausted from working 10-hour days and then coming home and having to work till dark outside. So please value other people's privacy. Oh, and as far as that fan that's been following me, I have blocked her on every social media I have, so she's not going to be hearing from me anymore. And there you have it. That is 16 feet of woven weave fabric, all ready for me to burn holes and plant strawberries, probably tonight. I have another 16 feet to go, but I'm actually using used fabric that we already have the holes in to do potatoes, which are also kind of late this year. It's a lot. So, whew. And if you're looking at this saying, "Oh my goodness, look how wavy and lumpy and bumpy it is," what's going to happen is the sun's going to hit this fabric and it's going to shrink and it's going to end up nice and smooth. And look at that. I just got another shipment of my woven weave ground cover. There you go, DeWitt Sunbelt professional grade. I'd say it was a good, productive day of work. If you enjoyed this video on how to keep your gardens weed-free and a little bit about one crazy chicken lady, please like, subscribe, and share. Have a blessed day, everybody. Bye-bye.